Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picture This, a Big Brother Hometowns retrospective podcast, Season 5, Chapter 1,
Woo.
Lather Yourself in That Crap. I'm Josh Consalvo, your host for this season. We are at our first ever all-returning player season, so I hope you've watched Seasons 1 through 4 of both Big Brother Hometowns and of Picture This, because that will provide you all the context you need to get you ready to listen to this. I'm joined by my co-host, Mitchell Stokes. Mitchell, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm so excited to talk about season 5. I am ready to get on my knees for Greg's chaos to talk about this season. I'm so excited.
Yes, it truly is so very good this season. Like, we just got off talking about season 4, which was so very not good as a season and still fun to talk about. This season is good. It is drenched in storyline. The gameplay is the gameplay's okay. Like, gameplay's fine. Like, but the characters really bring this one to life, and the stories of the individuals trying to get to that win, especially for a handful of them that really have a shot. It's just really fun. So, what is your like? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember like hearing about season 5 through the grapevine, and I like my first like point of context for it was from Quinn when and my season of BBH, and he was like, yeah, I was first boot, like it wasn't that great. And so I like remember feeling like, oh, I guess it wasn't a good season, like. And then I talked to Max and heard about his, how hard his journey was. Like, it was a hard this is a hard season for Max Teddy, who's going to come back as one of the only winners, but have a really deep run here. But it was hard. It took a lot out of him. And so I remember thinking, okay, BBH 5, I don't know. And then Josh sends me the episodes, and I was just like, this is amazing. Like, this is so fun. And, returning seasons are always really fun because you have grown to love the characters. And honestly, this cast is fantastic. Just like, I mean, top to bottom, you got 2 or 3 people who really don't contribute a ton, but they, even into their own right, they're playing harder than they did their first time, and Bobby, Layton, and Kyle. So you really are getting a lot out of people here, and it's really exciting to see them again, to have them back on my screen, and I'm ready to break it down and talk about it.
Yeah, there's a level of just like really silly things that happen, like kind of ridiculous things that happen, and I don't remember what my lived experience was. Like, I think I had a lot of people that I was really rooting for, in Sarah, in Bradley, in even Quinn, despite it not lasting long, and John, and some others, but like, and so I don't remember like loving all the things that were happening, but also when, and maybe I'm starting to learn this about myself, that in these early seasons, when I'm the only one running the show, I'm just focused on running the show, and I'm not, and the shenanigans don't entertain me as much in the moment, because I'm like, this is just getting in the way of like what I'm trying to accomplish here. But in reality, like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish here. So coming back after the episodes were finally edited and done, and watching this, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's a lot of
good. This is so good and so fun. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it, and talk about these crazy players.
Tell us about the journey to deciding that season 5 was going to be all returners, because, your casting pool at this point has been a lot of friends and families, people that are adjacent to your life. And then you had like a couple org players in season 4. How did you decide that now is the time to do all returners? And how did you ultimately decide on this cast of characters?
Yeah, so this was not supposed to be a returning player season. I originally, this was just going to be season 5. I wasn't ready to go there yet, because I didn't think that it was good to do that so soon. And so I tried to cast a season of newbies. I tried, and it just didn't happen. I didn't have enough people. There was a handful of applicants, and just it did not materialize. And so there was a point where I was just like, okay, I don't know what the future of BBH is. I don't know like where we're going with this. Like, am I done for a little while? And then I, all I remember is that Jenny and I took a trip to New York when I was in between jobs before I started at Bethel, which I'm now about to leave. And they and we were in New York, and I just started thinking, I was like, what if I go? What if I do the returning player thing? So I was like, I think I could cast a cast, and having a season is better than not. And Jenny and I remember we were sitting in line early in the morning to get tickets to see Waitress. And so we're just sitting on the street, just like waiting on Broadway, and I start like kind of get very me like to just be like, all right, we're doing this. And I just start going, and the cast is really, I mean, it's not necessarily handpicked, but I think I even put out an application. I probably did,
Yeah.
and to see who I would get, and we ended up with a solid bunch here of people that obviously all played before. At this point, Bradley is the only two-time player
Right.
to return. And yeah, and then we got off to the races and we made the season happen, because I just told myself, I was like, okay, if we get another season in, especially if it's good, we can continue to build momentum and audience that hopefully will propel us to season 6 to be able to cast an actual cast of people that
Yeah.
And actually I don't remember, but I think that you, Mitchell Stokes, were in the mix to be in the original season 5 that would have been newbies. I think that is when we first started talking about it, and then it ended up not happening or whatever. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like I just like kind of that popped in my memory.
I know that I was in the viewing party Facebook page. I do not remember my experience in terms of following it or in terms of like consuming any of the content. I probably didn't, to be honest.
Right.
But I know that like it was around this time that you started telling me like, hey.
Right.
And so it's all your fault that this
Yeah.
is where we are right now.
But yeah, and then I mean, we'll talk about this in the season 6 season, but like, season 6 was kind of easy to fill up. I mean, there's some returning players there too, but like, this season served its purpose in that regard, in that we were able to get that momentum, and then we haven't had an issue casting a season ever since. So
no. And sometimes the right pivot at the right time leads you down an amazing path, and I think that that's kind of what you just outlined, and it's really exciting, and it gave us a great season of Big Brother Hometowns, one that is going to be so fun to talk to. I am ready to get into this cast.
Yep.
Let's just, I don't know, do we need to play our word association game? Because maybe like we could tweak it, like maybe instead of talking about how the season went for them, or about them, because we've already kind of discussed them. Maybe
right.
we talk through like, do they change their game? Like, what can we be tracking for each player?
Right.
Like, how do they are they going to change their game? Are they going to play kind of the same? Maybe like we could go that route instead.
Yeah, let's do that. I also like wouldn't mind talking about their intro videos, because we have a lot of really good intro videos to talk about. So I think we can each kind of talk about in order their video, and like what are they here for, like ultimately this season. Like what do they have to prove? I don't want to call it their second chance story, but for most of them it is their second chance story, except for Bradley. So yeah,
that's a great idea. So we'll just go in order, I guess, from the intro video on YouTube. So first up, we have the winner of Big Brother Hometowns 3, currently our 3rd ranked winner in our postseason winner rankings, Mr. Maximus Teddy.
Yeah, first of all, his intro video is amazing. Like
it's so funny.
It's so funny. Like we also didn't say, and let me this particular podcast is going to cover intro videos, so that's episode 0 through episode 6.
Yeah.
So a little bit more than, like, this is where the episodes start getting a little bit more involved. Like so the development of the episodes kind of at this point starts moving a little bit. Maybe because we have, I mean, returning players that kind of know what they're doing at this point.
Right.
So a lot of them are going to provide more content, which is good. So yeah, episodes 0 and then 1 through 6. So watch those before you watch this. Or pause it now and go watch that. You know, whatever. You guys know the drill at this point. But yeah, Max, his intro video is so good, like very fun, tells a story about why he shouldn't be playing. And yeah, he shouldn't be playing.
No, not at all. But it's also incredibly self-aware. Like that's what I like. Everything that you were getting, you know, like I can't believe Mitchell continues to trash Max during this podcast, like back in season 3. Like he says everything that I said.
Right.
Like everything, every complaint that I had about Max's game, he is self-aware enough to notice it here. And so I feel justified.
Yeah, no, he really does, which is funny because even at that point, his game was like regarded as so great.
Yes, yeah, everyone was so like, yes, Matt. Oh my gosh, Max, you were so great. Yeah, but context and history have changed that perspective. But yeah, I found it really interesting that he basically outlines everything that I said about just like not that he did bad. I never said that, but like that my complaints with his play style and what he did. And so I was happy to see that. Like if I was a viewer of that season and that was his intro video before it started, I would be so excited to see what he was going to do differently. Circumstance of how the game goes really dictates that Max relies on, you know, his forte, which was and is competitions. So
right.
He didn't really have a choice to do much to change anything. And I think he solidifies here why he is one of the great players of Big Brother Hometowns, because even at the most adverse competition against him, he's able to rise and overcome it and make a deep run here.
Yeah, agreed. Don't have much more to add. Very entertaining. Like the level of self-awareness like carries into the game where he's playing with house money at this point. Yeah. Like any day he gets in the game for him is like a fun treat. Like he's like, oh, I'm still here. Cool. I mean, like keep fighting and eventually he's going to like make take a shot at winning. Like there's a path that Max could have won this season. And it's not crazy to believe that. So that he could have won 2 out of the first 5 seasons of BBH.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, we go to our another winner who does not take that approach, and that's in the Connor Mills.
Alexa, play the greatest hits.
Yeah. I mean, truly, like, we'll save that for when we get there. But his intro video, super fun. Like, does a little talk show thing.
Long.
It was very long, very long, like a minute and a half too long, but like very fun. I love conceptualizing an intro video. So if you have a bit, like, go for it. Like that's I always will love that. He talks about wanting to be a villain this time around, and instead he just wanted to be Josh Gardner this time around.
Truly, he must have watched season 4. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. I really enjoyed 2 lines from his intro video. Was it was the first line where he said, "Welcome to Mornings with Connor this evening."
Yeah. Well, like, no, it's like no. He knew what he was doing. It was like the nighttime edition of the morning show. I don't know why.
It was so dumb.
Yeah, it's like it's silly, but like I appreciate it.
And then I just appreciated the use of the word Machiavellian. Like,
yes,
like
a Machiavellian wonder was the yeah. And he's obviously like, this was like not long after he got married, so he's still in like the honeymoon phase of his marriage, and he can't stop talking about Shelby, which is great. Like, good for him. I'm happy for him, but it's very funny and cute. Yeah. And what is Connor here for? I think Connor should be here to prove that he's like a really solid player and like has the ability to play well. And that's like that his shtick in season 2 didn't get him the win, but instead he really is in his Tony Vlachos Game Changers era right here.
He is, but you know what? There's something that's so incredibly fun about the short time that we have him.
Yeah.
And there's that one confessional, I think it's like episode 4 or 5, or maybe is it 3 when he's booted? I don't really remember. But like he's talking about how stressful this is and how hard this experience has been, but how much fun he's having and how much he loves playing Big Brother and how much he loves. And they're just like, you know what? That's what he's here for, you know? And like, I mean, spoiler alert, I did terrible in season 10 All Stars. I was here because I loved Big Brother Hometowns. I knew there was no chance of winning, for me. So, I could relate to that. And it was very heartfelt and very sincere. And, it was almost like you need to take that and put it as like a marketing video ad of like why people should play Big Brother Hometowns, because he's just like so it's so sincere, and it was very nice.
Yeah. Then we go to Quinn. The intro video, great. Quinn is the greatest intro video player in BBH history. I mean, he has a lot to pick from, so that helps his case. If we were ranking who's the best at making an intro video, you have to give it to Quinn overall. He started the bit. His season 3 intro video was great. His season 5 is like the dramatic retelling of season 3, or the over dramatized retelling of what happened in season 3. Unfortunate that he goes out so early in Teddy Gate. But
I'm excited to talk through that, because I truly think that they did it to themselves, and I think Quinn is a great player. He's what was at one point on my list of best players to never win. But I think from what the episode tells us and the content of episode 1, he does this to himself by making such a stand against Max.
right.
And so I'm curious to talk through like the lived experience of that and what maybe did or did not actually happen, because it is a shame, because we lose out on some fun content and a great player, but I think he did it to himself.
Yeah. Sarah's back after being second. If you don't remember Sarah, second boot of BBH 1.
Icon.
Yes, so good. I mean, she's back to she says she wants to do all the way better. It's her quote, and she's going to say that a couple more times throughout the season. And she's going to do it, obviously, but she is such a strong player. I was so excited for her. I think I did a cast assessment and probably said something to the effect of, she comes into this season knowing a handful of people, not knowing a handful of people, and that's the difference maker, because in season 1 everyone knew her and she came in as a threat. Now she comes in knowing a few people who are not going to take her out because of that,
Right.
because it's not a field of only people that know who Sarah is. So Sarah can actually play a game here and play the game.
She plays a masterclass, in my opinion. I talked last season about how we should give Benny more credit for riding the middle and knowing when to flip over to the Max side of things. Okay, cool. That was one thing. This is a masterclass in how you play the middle. And she gives us so much content and so much context for her game, so we actually get to see it, and that's what makes it so rootable. And as much as I love Greg, I'm gonna have my case about why I think Sarah potentially should have won this game.
Season 5 is a season of heartbreak. It's a season of heartbreak because you have two players that I could stand here and say Bradley should have won, and I could stand here and say Sarah should have won, and I can also say Greg should have won, and I mean Greg did win, but the fact that you had those three players who played so strong, and they're the final 3, which is so rare. That does not always happen. And that's part of Sarah's problem. That's part of Sarah's problem. However, all 3 of them play super well, but I would say Greg played the third best of those 3 games. More than it's hard to say. We'll save the end game for the end game, but season 5, a story of silly shenanigans, but also a story of heartbreak down the stretch. Then Bradley, speaking of Bradley, I love his intro video. His intro video, the first time I heard it, made me laugh out loud because he says, if you're watching this, I'm about to play Big Brother Hometowns for the 3rd time. And then he goes, I'm not excited about it either.
And imagine when he comes back for his 4th and his 5th.
Yeah. He can't help himself.
No, he really can't. But it's so fun. And it's after he's the first 3rd-time player in series history. He comes in, he says, I have no strategy. And you know what? I believe him.
Yeah.
Honestly, Bradley's not one to mince his words. And so I think he really walked into this and said, I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm not going to try to force anything. And I'm just going to see what happens. And he has his best run, probably his best run and best chance to
Yeah.
win out of his, subsequent attempts and his future attempts that haven't happened yet. This is the one that he could have had it.
Yeah.
So.
He really could have. And like I said, a story of heartbreak. Bradley losing this one Bradley is the heartbreaker because he doesn't even get a chance to plead his case, which if Bradley pleads his case, he beats anyone on this cast in the final two. That's how strong of a game he played, and everyone knew it. And yeah, so I'm excited to talk about this one for Bradley because it is his best shot.
Yeah.
Greg brings the villain energy in his intro video big time. He wants to bring chaos and chaos and chaos, and that's his thing.
My BBH favorite player of all time, Greg Wells. I love this man so much. My favorite line from his intro video was when he said, I do have one regret from my season, and I would have caused more chaos.
My other thing was that in his intro video is he's really pressed about Connor for some reason. And he's like, if I see
Connor
in this house, I'm gonna lose it. I'm like you and Connor had no real beef in season 2. Yeah,
they didn't. Yeah. Anyway,
but whatever. Greg was like a last second add to this cast. I had to do some convincing to get Greg here. And we're all better for it.
I think I've heard a story once upon a time that like Tucker Ficklin and Gray Price and somebody else like paid for.
Yes. Oh, I can't believe I would have forgotten about this. So it's Justin, Matt, and Gray, I believe.
Okay.
Supported Greg in this. So like this was still when you had to pay $20 to play. So they I'm pretty confident like that if you let me just real quick exercise here. I think it was the three. Yes. Okay. So it was the three of them. It was Gray, it was Matt, and it was Justin.
Okay.
And they paid, they split the cost of Greg's payment. And it was even better because if it was $20 and if you divide 20 divided by 3, it is $666 a person. Right. And so Greg said, pay for me each $666 to be the villain of this season. And if I win, I will split the winnings with all of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and it was a $200 prize this season. And so he won and he split the $200 with the three, between the four of them. And yeah, so that was like the last straw to get Greg to play. Was he's like, I'll do it if they pay for me, and I'll split the winnings with them if I win. So, yeah, excited to watch Greg. Greg's game really flourishes in the back half. So this particular podcast is not going to cover Greg a whole lot. We'll hear from him here and there.
I'm gonna need you to give some context to like who he's connected with, because I mean we have some later game context to know that he's going to work a lot with Sarah, and they're going to really dominate a lot of this game together. But in the front half, Sarah doesn't talk about Greg that much at all. And Greg's not giving us a ton of content. So we look at his votes, because there's a lot of split votes in this season that'll be really fun to talk about. So we can look at his voting history, and we can look at some of the other contextual things, but I'm hoping that you have some memories or some context for what Greg was up to, because for a big promise to be this chaos bringer, and this he's gonna bring the house to its knees. He plays a relatively quiet pre-jury, and I wonder if he got the win, like wanting to win became more important to him than being a villain. And
that's really true, is that he still wants to play the villain, but he wants to do it in a little bit more smarter way. And so a lot of his villainry in the early game is very fun, like poking fun at Leighton for like having a trash game, and like just like making snide comments here and there, all in jest, and everyone kind of knew it, that he was playing up this character.
It's the shtick of Greg,
It's
right?
the shtick,
They
but
seem like, oh,
it's not a caricature of himself like Connor does. It's just like, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna pepper it in here and make it fun. Like we're not like we are just playing a game after all. And Greg doesn't like have a ton of people. Like that's the context, is like he doesn't really get in with a lot of people. He's just fun with everyone and doesn't really have a side quite yet. But his sole mission is to get Connor out. Like that's what he's working. He doesn't care about alliances. He's like, I'm gonna beat Connor here because he beat me last time or whatever, and that defines Greg's front half. All right, Allie, her intro video is yada yada yada, nothing super exciting, but she wants to fix the mistakes like from last time.
Not put her alliance ahead of herself, which
Right.
Great in theory and great in concept. Let's see if she can do it. I struggle with Allie this season because she is doing a lot, but then she comes to her DR and is like, nobody will talk to me. I'm on the outside. And it's like, well, everybody else is saying that you're with, part of what's going on. So
and that rubbed people the wrong way a lot. Like, especially people on the other side, they were like, I'm so tired of Allie telling me that she doesn't have anyone. I know you have people, Allie, like you do. And so maybe Allie truly felt that way because her side probably feels so small because it's just Jeff and Max, really. Right. Yeah, this isn't Allie's best like effort overall. Like she's a good player and makes a somewhat deep run here. But like, she doesn't play particularly like fantastically.
Yeah.
Then we get to John, like intro video, uninteresting other than like bringing up the veto thing from season 3 where he doesn't use the veto on himself. Yeah. He's like, going to make better decisions this time. And we'll see what happens.
I think he does. I mean, I think he plays a lot better this season, at least through the first half, than he did in season 3. So
yeah. Then we get really a gem, like an under the radar, kind of forgotten about intro video in the Bobby Layton joint intro video. Whoa, these fish! And they're like using like a Mac. You know how like.
Photo booth,
Mac. Photo booth, Mac, like where you can like do like little overlays, and they're like in the ocean with all these fish, and you can barely see Layton's head. Like I'm convinced that BBH viewers probably still don't know what Layton looks like because they hardly
always wearing sunglasses,
right? Or doing the top of his head in confessional or whatever.
Yeah, it was really fun, and they had some like funny lines about like, oh, and Josh he's always rushing us to do stuff and like trying to get this deadline and get this video in, and they're like talking over each other. It's really funny. Like,
right. And I had just left Aldersgate where they were my students, and so they poked fun of like Josh left us, like we don't even like him anymore. So it's very good. It's the most entertaining thing they do in their BBH career.
I mean, and they're not going to give us a ton of content, but they're going to play hard.
Yeah, they're much more. They play this season a lot better, and Layton's going to go all the way to 4 here in the season. So they play a more significant role in this season than they did in season 3. Then we have Jeff, who calls himself the Mafia boss. That's kind of a storyline we forgot to talk about in season 4, but it wasn't really like prevalent or important. That was
like post, right? Like post season, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, Jeff was kind of like the Mafia boss."
Yeah. And so he like ran with that, and
full on every confessional, every like time he talked, I can't even do my Mafia boss thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, bro, let it rest.
Yeah.
Let it rest.
No, Jeff doesn't let things rest. He still gives up the peace sign every video.
Yeah. And I want to know, he's going to talk a lot in these first 6 episodes about how he was manipulating people and like using them. I want to know the validity of those things, because if I had to wager and bet money, I would say probably not what actually happened, but that would be my guess.
Yeah. Then Leah comes in, and I kind of wish we hadn't cast Leah in the season. I like it was more to fulfill a need at that point. I like, get like said that she wasn't gonna be able to commit very much, and she wanted to try and cause chaos or like cause some drama, but she didn't really do that. She just was
Right.
very absent. She had a family issue. You kind of hear that alluded to. I don't even remember what it was. It's not really important. It was, her own personal business, but like she had some kind of family thing that she had to deal with. That eventually is kind of the reason she goes out.
Right.
And so, Leah doesn't have much to prove in terms of how good of a game player she is. We
It was
sang
nice
her praises. Yeah.
Nice of her to say yes. We're not going to get much out of her this time, and that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah. Kyle's back. Nothing interesting on his intro video, but once again, also plays a little bit of a stronger game here. We'll have an HOH.
Well, he came back and seemed like he really did think about season 4 and
Right.
how he really wasn't involved. And I wonder if, like, talking to people post game or watching the finale, he realized that there was a lot more happening than what he thought was going on, and he's committed to playing harder. And so, yeah, again, not going to give us a lot of fun or interesting content, not even going to give us a lot of content either, but is going to play harder and is going to be more involved in the happenings of what's going on here, and that's ultimately very fun.
Yep. And then to round out the cast, your king and mine,
the Veto King,
Daniel Sanchez, back for his second round. His intro video is very funny. Like, he says, "I'm gonna win more vetoes and be nicer to people related to Josh."
Well, he says, "I'm gonna do what I didn't do last time, and I'm gonna win more."
Yeah.
It's like very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
It's very funny. It's a shame that we don't see Daniel do very well in this season. But while he's here, he's got some great one-liners. He's gonna just really deliver on being a character, and it'll be fun to talk about.
And that's our cast. So 30 minutes in, let's get to episode 1 and start talking about the actual game. So this episode opens up with some confessionals that are a little bit like pre-game confessionals from Connor and Sarah. Connor like has a bit about like it's we're in the Big Brother house. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited! Like all that. Nothing super interesting. Just like that's kind of the last bit that Connor does. The rest are going to be actual just regular old confessionals.
Real frustration.
Yeah, and a lot of real frustration or fake real frustration. Yeah, we'll get into that. Sarah is pre-gaming a little bit, thinking about who could possibly be in the game. She's hoping her brother is not there. He is not, obviously. And then Connor kind of gives his idea of what he wants to do. He's like, I want to team up with people from season 2, which is only Greg in this case. So that's not going to really work out. He wants to drive a wedge between seasons 3 and 4. He wants to work with other winners. He doesn't really do any of this.
No,
quite frankly.
It's okay. They're great ideas. Honestly, they're great ideas. I actually believe that. I think they're
the only one that he actually kind of does is the work with winners thing and tries to work with Max, but he makes it increasingly harder on himself because Max is just he understands the validity of winners working together, but he's like, if you're gonna act like this the whole time, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah. He just can't help himself.
No.
Like you made the perfect comparison. Like he's in his Tony Vlachos from Game Changers era. Like this is a lot of these things that he's doing is him like screaming and running into the jungle. Like,
yeah.
And it's just like, bro, stop. Like, relax. And, like just calm down a little bit. But you know what? I get it. Like I can't help myself either sometimes. So I get it.
Bradley says he's talking to everybody. That's good. We get a lot of Connor. He's talking about his alliance with Greg and that how he's going to play Greg in the first HOH competition as a part of their ruse to like make it seem like they're against each other. But the reality is that Greg is against him.
Yeah. So great.
And so like, I think there could have been like, I think Greg probably should have like gotten away from this idea of I need to take Connor out because you have a familiar face, but he just doesn't trust him enough to think that like, and I don't even know if Connor trusts Greg enough to actually be going through with this. He's telling us that like we're working together, but not telling anyone or making it look like whatever. But you got, if you're Connor, you have to have in the back of your mind, like, does Greg really want to work with me? Like they both sent in pre-game confessionals about not wanting to work with the other person. Like, and they didn't even know the other person was going to be there. So, whatever.
It is what it is. This is a fun moment. Allie has a confessional. She talks about Josh Gardner. So
yeah,
a king's presence is truly felt on season 5. And I just thought that was really funny. And so
Yeah, I forgot to say in the intro videos, Jeff brings up Josh, Leah brings up Josh, and now Allie has brought up Josh in the first episode.
a true king knows no boundary.
Yeah.
Season cannot contain him. Okay.
These people have trauma. That's the issue. They have trauma.
No, and they do. They really
And it's coming out. And they need to shake that. They need to be able to play the early game without the ghost of Josh Gardner, haunting them. She wants to connect with her BBH4 friends. In this case, that's Jeff and that's maybe Kyle and Leah. But she even says Leah's kind of MIA, so I don't know how much that's going to work. We get to Max. He says, "Welcome to Max's demise," which is funny. And he talks about, now this is an interesting thing. He says that Quinn is already targeting him here in round 1 of the game. We never hear from Quinn. Quinn's too busy playing to Zen Confessionals and probably presumably too busy trying to paint a target on Max. That's is what it is. Max says he wants to maybe have some loyalty to Bobby because he had loyalty to him last season, or in season 3, which is funny because Bobby tries to vote Max out in this episode. Right. He says he doesn't want to work with John or Bradley, which is interesting. One of my favorite storylines in BBH, which we're going to slowly build our way towards in this podcast today, is the Bradley and Max relationship, but we're not there yet. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's really interesting because basically season 3 boots Max and forms up. Bobby, Layton,
boots Quinn, you mean?
Yeah. No, they boot Max out of their team. Like Quinn, Bobby, Layton, John, and Bradley are all basically working together for the entirety of the season, and they basically oust Max and say, "Yeah, he won our season. Let's work together." And Max is kind of like left to fend for himself here. And then this is really where we start to see this where I think Quinn shoots himself in the foot by making it just so public that you have a thing about getting Max out or not working with him. You give people such an easy target.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're Max, you can kind of, I was able to read into this and also like actually read some of his chats and things. Like, he says he doesn't want to work with John or Bradley, but Bradley's a good enough player that he's like forming a very or reforming a good relationship with Max. Well, John isn't necessarily. John's kind of sometimes doing his John thing where he'll like grandstand a bit, and he's doing that with Max a little bit here and there. And so Bradley, so therefore, John is higher on the pecking order for Max than Bradley is, which is going to pay off big time for both Bradley and Max. But yeah, we'll get there. I'm very excited to talk about the Bradley Max thing. That's my, like I said, my favorite story. So, but Max is already coming in being like, I mean, he says in his intro video, he's like, I probably am not going to last long in this game. I could easily be the first boot. I'm one of 2 winners here, or I'm a winner coming back. I don't, but good on Max for trying, for being here, and obviously it pays off for him and he plays really well. But like, good on him for showing up, which is, it's tough to do in such a limited series of BBH and already being back as a winner. Tough thing to do. We get Jeff. He does the Mafia Boss thing some more.
This toothpick in this man's mouth. I have to stop. I have to stop here.
I didn't catch this.
The giant toothpick that he is chewing on. I don't even have anything else to say. I just had to stop and talk about it because, add this to the diamond earrings, and this is just like
the legend of Jeff.
It's a look, man. He's doing his, you're right. He's doing his Mafia Boss thing, but he, again, is so bought in to this, like, I'm big bad Mafia Boss, and you go off, Tim. Go
off. Another confessional from Sarah. She's great confessional giver, like we said, and she talks about like she has a healthy sense of paranoia throughout her entire game, which can always be used well. And Sarah's one of those people that her over paranoia is kind of a good thing. She does the thing where she overthinks everything, but she's not going to let that bleed into the actual game. She's just going to keep that like to herself. Yeah. And like, maybe that's not good for her own like state of being, but it's good for her game because like she tells us, she's like, I told Connor that I knew everyone in season 1. Therefore he can deduce that since they all knew me and then they booted me second, that must have meant I was a big threat.
Right.
which I am, but I don't want him to know that, you know,
Yeah.
and that never like manifests at all. But that's the kind of like we're getting a sense of the like the character of Sarah's player here, and I think that's just an interesting like look into her mind where like a lot of confessionals that you'll see from Sarah, especially when they come after a decision has been made, you see like, okay, thank God I wasn't nommed, I wasn't renommed,
Yeah.
I'm safe. Like,
well, and like too, like in whenever she makes a decision, like I have to decide if I'm gonna go with this side or with this side this round. She gets very like you could see the weight of that on her, and then again you'll come back afterwards, and then she's like, "All right, well I made my decision and it's final, so oh well." Like,
right,
it's very like another thing about her too. She gives us lots of content. She's a great confessional giver, and she does it in such a succinct way. She doesn't ramble. She just she keeps it short and sweet and to the point, and again really does a fantastic job narrating her story.
yep,
And yeah, she's super great.
yep. So then we get to the plague, and of course, as always, I have the order of the plague, and this can give us some context of where people are early, but it's not hard to pick out the sides in this
Right.
season. So this was a normal plague, so first person gets plague is safe, can't go home, and they plague on until we have a winner. So the person that was drawn at random was Bobby, so Bobby is safe in round one. He plagues Connor. Connor, we already know what he's going to do because he talks about it. He plagues Greg. Greg, if we can call him, we can say he's on that side with like Allie and Jeff and Max. It's probably a little easier for narrative sake to kind of lump him more on that side. So with that in mind, he plagues John. John plagues Jeff on the other side. Jeff plagues Quinn. And Quinn, take a guess, he plagues Max. I mean, this is another piece of evidence that he really is going all in on this. I need to get Max out thing. Quinn plagues Max. And this is just a long history of like Quinn can never like be in a BBH space without Max. And that's just the truth. Like he just can't. Like even next season, Max is on production with me and he's like, get him away from me. Anyway, Quinn plagues Max. Max plagues Kyle. Kyle, interestingly here, though I have a feeling this is probably a strategic move, plagues Sarah, someone in his alliance. Probably Sarah didn't want to be HOH if I had to guess. Sarah then plagues Allie on the other side. Allie comes back, plagues Bradley. Bradley plagues Leah, who's in no man's land. And then, so funny enough, Leah has the decision of who's going to be HOH. And I think she makes it quickly, not really discussing with many people. And she plagues Daniel, which leaves somehow Leighton Ward as our HOH.
I have no reaction. I'm sure he just sat back and it just happened around him.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. So
and then
can we please get into this?
Yeah.
The random generator of it all.
Yeah.
I need to know the validity of everything.
Oh, okay. Let's say this at the top. Not a single name in this season was randomly generated. That is a fact. That's not me guessing. I know for fact. Yeah. Not a single name was randomly generated. Because can you imagine that 2 times it was claimed that names were randomly generated, and the first time just so happened to be the only 2 players in the game who share DNA.
No, I know. I'm
not ranting to you. I'm ranting to Leighton. And then can you imagine the next time, Daniel, that names were randomly generated? They just happen to be the only 2 players that have previously won Big Brother Hometowns. What do these calculators know that we don't? What do these random name generators know that we don't? Like, what kind of artificial intelligence do you have? It is so transparent that it's translucent. It's just so ridiculous that twice people thought they could get away with claiming random name generation. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing, Leighton? Like, and this is what Connor's whole basis is. Like when he does his rant about and Sarah talks about it too. Everyone is trying to distance themselves from decision making in a game about making decisions. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what? Like, just put them on the block. Everyone knows that Max and Quinn are against each other. Everyone knows. The viewing party knows. I know. Every human being that is in the BBH space knows that Quinn is coming after Max and that Max has previously won, and they're two big targets in the game. Leighton Ward, you played with them. Just put them up. Just put them up. Like, what are we doing? Don't hide behind your random name generators. Like, I know I sound like Connor Mills right now, but what do we do? Make a decision. Have a backbone. Like, be a person that can make it, that has a functioning brain cell. Oh my gosh. It's just like, it was infuriating at the time. It's infuriating now.
You forgot to say lather yourself in that crap.
Lather yourself in that crap. This rant is sponsored by the people who watched whatever previous season where I mentioned this rant. If you recall, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna rant about this in a couple seasons," and I'm not just putting on for show. I am, but like it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so dumb. Like, just like, honestly, like, what are you trying to get at? Like, why are you distancing yourself from this decision that no one's going to fault you for? Like, who cares? Like, of course, put up the Teddy brothers. Like, there's reason behind that. Now, like, is it the best strategic move for Leighton? No, not particularly.
No sense for him, because I would, I have to imagine that him and Quinn and Bobby and John and Bradley have talked about working together. I have to imagine that's the case.
Right. And so, like, and if you're Leighton, like, what do you gain from knocking out two people that are against each other? Like, what you don't gain much other than, like, it's short-sighted. It's just short-sighted. It's like, oh, these two people caused me problems in season 3, so it's time to take them out now. And you know what? We're better off for it. Very fun way to start the season is to have what Sarah calls Teddy Gate. And they go head to head in this thing here. So, any other thoughts before we move on from that? Because I mean, it's all going to circle around this, but
no, I think you articulated it.
I articulated it
incredibly well. Let's move forward to like a very fun storyline of Connor painting a target on Jeff. Jeff says to Connor, you might be the replacement. And so Connor goes to Leighton and says, "Am I the replacement?" And he says no. And then Connor goes, "Well, Jeff told me that I was," and tries to get this target off of him and onto Jeff. Who knows if that would have happened or not? But it's very funny.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like, it's really good. Like, I watched this and I was like, wait a minute, Connor's like playing well here. Like, this is good. This is not like overdoing it. This is just simple manipulation. Like, simple Big Brother manipulation. Like, I heard this. Maybe he bent the truth a little bit, whatever. And like, Leighton's the perfect person to lie to, because he's not going to go fact checking.
No,
he's just going to take that and be like, oh, Jeff said this about me. So like, Connor very easily could have been the replacement nominee if there were to be one in this round. And I really think that Connor got himself out of that. I'm curious what would have happened if Sarah or if Max or Quinn were to have won this veto. If Jeff goes up, but I think he does, and there's a good chance that Jeff maybe goes out first in that spot. So then we get to Sarah. Another interesting little story about this is because she really has no business winning this veto. I think what happens with Sarah here, and she knows it. Like, she knows it, is that she just kind of like, it's like it was categories, like it often puzzles. Was. Yeah, she enjoys it, and she was like, I just want to like. I want to play. And so she did, and she ends up winning, and then regrets it immediately because she has to make a decision. And she questions herself. She's like, did I not make a decision by saying no? But no, that is a choice. She made it. She owns her decision. And now we're starting to see some alliance things here. So Connor talks about this alliance of Quinn, Daniel, Allie, Sarah, and himself. Sarah paints this same alliance as an alliance that Quinn, quote, forced her into. And that's the bad look for Mitchell. Or for Sarah. Is that's the tough thing that for her to like be like, why am I just blindly gonna have to trust Quinn here just because he put me in a group message? So the other thing that happens here, so Sarah wins and ultimately doesn't use the power veto as a result of that. But I don't remember where in order this happens, but I do remember that Max calls Sarah and they have a good conversation. The Max and Sarah relationship is interesting because Sarah always keeps Max at arm's length and the whole time. But I think that, a simple call in these games can often be the make or break difference in something. And I think that's what happens here is that, like, even though she ends up not using the veto, ultimately that's kind of ultimately is a move for Max and against Quinn, more or less, because if she was really loyal to Quinn, that's who she would have pulled off the block. And so since she didn't feel comfortable doing that, she couldn't pull Max off the block. Now that would probably even look worse. And so she keeps things as is and says, all right, boys, I'm going to let you have your little brother fight, figure it out.
Well,
where the votes are.
In that previous confessional too, she outlines a second group of people in John, Bradley, Kyle, and Sarah. And ultimately she says that alliance decides it's best for her not to use it.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is John and Bradley being like scared that they potentially could get put up for some reason and being like, no, keep it the same.
Right.
Self-preservation.
They shouldn't be worried about that, but they're probably also like, they have the dudes chat again, John, Bradley, Leighton, Bobby, and they're just trying to kind of keep blood off of themselves over there because they know they're going to be associated with them. The John, Bradley, Sarah, Kyle alliance is a fun one. They all have, ties from being in Statesville at certain points in life and whatnot. So like, that's a fun alliance. Bradley and John, obviously in the middle of that alliance, and then the dudes. I don't think that either knows about the other at any point. I think John and Bradley keep those things to themselves. But it kind of morphs into one side that functionally works together without actually like being together. And so that's nice. So Sarah doesn't use the veto. Connor starts out by wanting to keep Quinn, which is a logical decision in some ways. You take I don't know, Connor like needs a winner in the game, and he says that a million times, and I think that's true.
It feels like there's no hope for Max. It's like that's kind of, I think, where Connor's approaching this from. He's talking about how, he doesn't really see the path to keep Max. His target is too big, yada, yada, yada. But then, what happens, honestly, and what it sounds like is Max hustled. Like, Max really hustled to get the votes to stay. I don't know what Quinn was doing. I'm assuming he was hustling as well, but Max's pitch just was ultimately better.
Yeah.
And where Max thinks he's going to have 5 votes to stay, he ultimately ends up getting 9.
Yep.
And, that's just as a testament to, I think, probably the fact that after BBH3, Max goes and plays other games and Quinn stays as just a BBHer. And I think you kind of see the experience play in here a little bit, and Max just kind of knows the buttons to push with people and get them on his side.
Yeah, and he has that connection with Allie from other games, and so that's helpful. Like, Max, just plays a good social game. Like, he has Jeff on his side, and he has Allie. He knows he has them, and so therefore, by extension, he can get Leah a little bit on his side. And there's also something fun about Bradley and John, like, loving to vote Quinn out. They just enjoy that. Like, carries over as much as possible. Like, season 10, Bradley can't wait to vote Quinn out again. And he does.
That is going to be, we're going to need to have probably one podcast just to talk about that vote.
Yeah.
That's just that's so far away, but that's gonna need that's gonna need its own hour at least, and then I'm gonna need therapy afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. So and you can even see the joy because John and Bradley send their video together at a party and make the whole crowd roar. I vote to evict Quinn, or we vote to evict Quinn. And so Quinn goes out first. I would not have predicted going into this that we were gonna have a Quinn first boot, but you're right. He kind of put himself in this corner But and maybe even if he doesn't put himself in this corner and all things play out the same, Leighton probably still puts up Quinn and Max, like, and all this stuff. Like, that probably doesn't change a whole lot, but you never know what Quinn can do. He doesn't have to plague Max. He doesn't have to, like,
Doesn't have to do that.
like, that's something he did that affected things, that who knows how things change if maybe Max goes a little deeper in the plague and has a little bit more decision making. No one wants Leighton to be HOH. Who would want that? All right, so then we move on to episode 2. Well, actually, before that, like, what's our, like anything on Quinn? We're going to talk about him so much more in the future.
Yeah, I'm not stressed about it. I think he did it to himself. Yep. Sorry, thanks for playing. Moving on.
So we get Max, who is talking about, surviving the vote. There's a lot of these episodes do a good job of, like, the confessionals post or at the start of an episode really, like, being like, okay, this is how I'm feeling after the previous eviction. It's not just let's move on. It's like, let's talk about where we are. So Max talks about Jeff and Allie being on his side, talks a little bit about Connor's chaos. Nothing super crazy there. Leighton is funny because he gives us a confessional where he talks about wanting Max out. And I just have to laugh at Leighton's lack of agency.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you wanted Max out, I think there were better options to put on the block against him.
Yeah, 100%.
Other than Quinn. So,
right.
But
oh well. Jeff's talking about his allegiance to Max. Allie's trying to, like, work through who voted for who, and she's kind of wrong. She thinks that Bobby and Connor evicted Max. She's close. It was Bobby and it was Daniel, because Daniel never votes correctly ever.
Right.
Ever. That's his thing. Every season he never votes correctly. Then Sarah talks about the morning after Teddygate and how Quinn forced Sarah into the alliance. She didn't really love that, and how Max reached out to her and made a compelling case for himself and all that good stuff. So, then a fun little thing with Daniel and the Daniel Connor. We start to get the distrust from Daniel's side, despite Connor believing that they're in an alliance, which is obviously important.
Let's get them, boys. This is amazing.
Then Daniel wins HOH. Fun little non-reported story here, because I think I love to report about these kinds of things. There was an advantage won in this round. It does not go to use at all. Kyle won the cube, therefore, like, the grant that he can give himself safety for any round. He holds onto it to a little too long and gets evicted with it in his pocket. But Daniel's HOH, and this is where Connor starts to become unhinged. Because the first thing that Daniel does, and he does this a lot, and there's another thing that Daniel likes to do when he's in power, and he pulls the house. He's like, everyone, please tell me the 2 people you'd like to see evicted, like, whatever, like, asks everybody, and everyone's like, oh, just make a decision. Could these people just make a decision? And Connor's name is now on the list, to potentially get evicted, despite Connor believing that they're in an alliance, which obviously doesn't mean diddly squat to Daniel. And
side note, Daniel's video quality is so much better.
Much improved.
It's so much better than that season 1 filter that he had.
Yeah, much improved. And so then we cut right to the random name generator. And now we're doing it on video. We see him with the calculator. And
how could you not believe that it's true, Josh?
How could you not believe that it is true?
He showed it on video.
Yeah, he showed it on video. And certainly it was random, and he did not program it to pop up and say Max and Connor on the first try. No, he did not do that at all. Certainly not. Oh, wow. The random name generator, the 2 winners. What? And Max again. Oh, he just has such poor luck with these random name generators, this Max. So it's so silly. It's just so silly because, like, come on, just own up, and we get a great confessional from Max about his new home, the block. He said, my real estate agent Daniel, and he said, like, it was just so random that he found this place for me. And very good stuff from Max. Max is like, he's just chilling, he's not pressed about anything. He knows
he's expecting this. I mean, he's not surprised in the slightest. And I think I ultimately think that's why Connor falls and Max rises, right? In that, like, their response to the pressure is
Yeah, it's
very
very
different.
different.
And whereas Connor kind of loses his mind a little bit, Max is like, yeah, I was expecting this. Like, I'm gonna play hard, and I'm gonna do my thing. And if I stay, I stay, and if I go, I'm not gonna be surprised.
Right.
Connor is incoherent at times.
Yeah. We get a great line from Sarah when she's processing the random name generating of it all, and she's like, blah blah blah, like this random name generator and the distancing from decisions, and she's like, I don't know. She said, I don't know enough about calculators to say for sure. I think that's a great line. She's like, it could have been random, but I don't know enough about calculators to say for sure. That's a very Sarah line. She's like, Sarah's one of the funniest people I know. Like her and I've always just connected on a humor level, and our sense of humor very
Mhm.
similar. So that's just a great line from her. So no one's buying it's random. And then Connor has this brilliant original idea.
Yeah.
And that is, what if I blow up on the house
Yeah.
and make a target of myself so big that it becomes impossible to actually get me out? Let's go back to the well. Once, like you said, let's play the greatest hits. We're playing the hits, guys. We're
Yeah.
playing the hits. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Lather yourself in that crap. I hate you all.
He really said that. I was like, it's one thing to like yell at people, but then he lands on I hate you all.
Well,
And
and
it's not like an angry I hate you. It's like I hate you all. It's like soft spoken disappointment.
but
It's like
it's to me, it's the only line. It's like the only forced line that he gives there, and because it stems from, and I've never seen this season of Big Brother, where Dr. Will tells everyone that he hates them all.
Right.
Like he says that, and so he's pulling from that, and he decides to land the plane with "I hate you all." Like,
so silly.
it's so silly. But sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the line that I do of like from the rant is, play the game. If I'm the one at the end, I hope that I'm lathered in everybody's blood. And I agree with him. I mean, I do agree with him. Like, this is all stars. Don't play scared. And I do agree to that extent. I greatly dislike this video, but like I also, again, I relate to Connor as somebody who is blown up on a house chat.
Well, and I think that he could have accomplished this in a much more tasteful way. He could go to the house chat and say, "God, I'm just really tired of like no one making decisions for themselves. Like, like if you're gonna put me up, put me up. Like, there's ways to do this. Like instead of this like tirade." But one of the funniest things that came from this is that if you watch the video, the facial expressions that Connor makes are just so good, and there's tons of them. So much so that the rest of the time that Daniel Sanchez was in the house, he would send screenshots of Connor that he would turn into memes, or that he would like doodle over, and like, this is Connor angry, this is Connor when he's this, Connor when he's that, and it was so good. And there's just tons of them because like he's just so expressive with his face, because he's like, I mean, this video is very performance based. It's a performance. He's doing it for the fans as much as he's doing it for his game.
We went to the theater, honey. Like, we were like I this was the most expensive play on Broadway. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are people that do, like I said, Sarah agrees with him and like most people can get on board with what he's talking about. Like, make a decision for yourself.
But yes, a lot of people agree with what he's saying, but they just disagree with the way that it was presented.
Right. Like Bradley talks and Sarah both talk about not liking the tirade. Bobby even comes in with a confessional talking about that was like a bit much.
It wasn't the way to do. If you wanted to stay, that wasn't the way to do it.
Right. That gets said. Bobby comes in and confirms the like dudes alliance, nothing crazy there. But we get a confessional from Bobby, which is great. Can't be upset about that. Max wins the veto, of course. He's gonna do that many a time, win a competition. So he wins the veto. We get a confessional from Allie talking about like the random name generating being kind of a pain, not loving that either. But so while Connor is being Connor, you can't have a worse HOH than Daniel's having right now. I feel like, you know,
Oh,
no one loves this. You know, you cause this stir that's only putting target on your back. Max, of course, uses the veto. Daniel makes this joke about trying to put Connor up on the block twice. Very funny. And then ultimately nominates Leah, which I remember kind of came out of the blue. Like someone presented that idea to him. I don't remember who was on the short list of who might have gone on the block otherwise. But then like someone was like, you know, Leah's not really like around at all for any of us. And that kind of materializes. And Daniel's like, I think Leah's the one that needs to go up.
right.
And then Leah at some point posts to the house about all the things going on in her regular life, which leads people to the like, okay, what do we do? Do we take Connor out after he just did this?
Yeah.
Or do we let him win? Like, let this work for a round for him
Yeah.
and take out Leah, who's not contributing, that's not playing. Like, I appreciate that, like, on two levels. One, like, if Leah has things in her real life that she's to tend to,
Right.
go.
Did
And
she
then,
ask to get voted out?
no, she was still trying to stay in. Like,
Okay.
she was
Well,
like,
that gives some context because I think it's kind of painted as like these things happen and she wanted to go home, and then people were like, no, we're going to like evict Connor instead. So it's good to know and to hear that like she was still trying. She wanted to stay. She didn't give up. She didn't
right.
ask to get voted out.
She did not.
And it gives a lot. It does give more context to like the Bradley confessional where he says like, I can't believe we had to try and convince people to do this. Like,
Right.
and I think when you know, I want to take a second to look over these votes because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
If like the people who ultimately want to give Leah, you know, who want to vote Leah out, being people that were aligned with, like,
I did write in my notes, and no Mitchell. I have no idea what Leighton is doing.
yeah,
Like,
like,
I don't know why like Leighton goes against Bradley and John and them who are trying to get Connor out. But you have like it is a very interesting vote. So to run through them, Greg evicts Connor. That's his whole mission.
yeah,
Sarah evicts Leah because she like still like has a decent relationship with Connor, wants to maintain that a little bit, trying to protect him, and also feels bad for Leah. Like I truly think that Leah's better off dealing with real life and not with this silly game.
yeah.
Bradley wants Connor out. Allie also kind of like who loves Leah, work
Yeah.
together so much. She's like, I think it's just what we got to do here. Because she's not helping Allie in any way either. Like
But
Connor
they're giving
staying.
up a number. That's the thing I don't understand about Allie, Max, and Jeff's. Is it Jeff's vote? Like, no, yeah, because Jeff votes Leah out too.
Yes.
Like, I don't understand this about their vote in that, like, that's somebody who's on your side. Yes, and she's not playing.
Yeah.
Like, she's just gonna be a number for you. Like, pick her up. Like,
Yeah, I can see that. I think the combination of the real life stuff with the like Connor is playing while he's playing like a madman. He is more on our side and he is a public threat. I think that outweighed enough. I think that maybe if they keep Leah, that works out better for them in the long run. Maybe, but
Right.
it's just so hard to carry dead weight. It's just really, really hard to do that in this game because you just need people to be working for you, not just like around to throw a vote. Like, and I see what you're saying, but I think that's what won out for them, and it barely won out.
They're putting themselves just like the way we know that it's going to go. They're putting themselves at a disadvantage here by giving up this number so easily.
Right.
This potential number for them because they are in the minority trying
Right.
to overcome the dudes alliance, the John, Bradley, Leighton, Bobby of 4 that then is also kind of working with Sarah and Greg. So that's 6 people that they kind of have Kyle as well.
Right.
You know, they're just putting themselves in a deeper hole by evicting Leah, who could have been a number on their side.
Right. The good thing for them is that this game does kind of punch back and forth, and their side does have Max on it, who obviously is proving to carry a lot of this in his competition wins. But even after all that, for some reason, Leighton evicts Leah. I still don't understand that to this day because Bobby doesn't, and none of the other dudes do. But it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This 5-5 tie is perfect for Sarah for a couple of reasons, which I'll get to in a minute. But first of all, we have our 5-5 tie. And Daniel breaks the tie to evict Leah. And I think that's just the like real life stuff won out and knowing that we can still get Connor out. helps out. But this really helps Sarah, and she talks about this as we get into episode 3. She gets to hide her vote in this 5-5 tie and be able to tell both sides that
There's
she
so
did.
much ambiguity in what that vote ultimately was.
Right. And I even think if the vote went 6-4, she wouldn't have been able to hide it anymore, because you can figure that out. Because Leighton is not like running around saying what he did. And so like it's just perfect for Sarah. She's able to hide and plant herself in the middle. I think she leans, like, in terms of the information she gives out and in terms of like the strategizing she does, her main crew is John, Bradley, Kyle.
Yeah.
But like she's in the middle here and is able to get, the information from both sides and work with Allie and Max some and Jeff a little bit and Greg. But also like stick with Bradley and John and all these things. And so, I just love that from Sarah.
We have a pair of back-to-back confessionals at the beginning of episode 3 from John and Sarah talking about their alliance with Kyle and Bradley. John says he's playing quieter this time, and I think he's playing smarter. I mean, he's not trying to just be a villain. He's trying to actually play smart, lay low, and do the right thing, which is great. They both talk about catching Allie in this like, I don't have anyone, saying the same things to everybody over and over again, and how annoying that is. Which, it again, like you said, this is really her main crew of people at this point in the game, but she's doing a great job concealing herself, and her intentions truly.
Right. Yeah. And so, they're both leery of Allie because of that. Daniel talks about knowing that his HOH was a disaster, which it was. You never want to have to break a tie like that early in the game and cause just like all like the random name generating of it all, and then causing Connor to flip out, and then feeling terrible that you put Leah on the block when she's going through real life issues, and then sending her out the door in a tie. Like, it just, none of this is good for Daniel at all.
Not at all.
We get one of the most iconic pairings back in the game. We haven't seen it in a long time, and that's me with my television.
I was like, huh?
Me and the TV's back to talk about Deep Undercover, our favorite HOH to talk about every season. But this time it comes to the twist, and that it's a secret week, secret HOH, secret veto week.
Super fun.
Yeah, really fun. I have the names, the secret agent names, but none of them are really interesting. So nothing to really report there. They're names and they're fun and whatever. I think one person put random name generator as their spy name, which is really funny. That's maybe the most interesting one. But Kyle wins the secret HOH. It's a shame for Kyle in a sense that his only HOH happened when no one knew about it. I mean, I think he told Sarah and Bradley and John for sure, but no one really knew who it was. I think people can figure out what side of the world it came from. Like, it's probably someone over there. No one was super pressed about it. And maybe this is something we need to bring back as a secret HOH idea, because it is fun.
Yeah, very fun.
And it allows someone to make a move without the blood on your hands. And so Kyle tries to do that. And here we go again. Max and Connor back on the block. And this is where Connor gives his confessional, which is like a PSA about how great BBH is.
Yeah.
Appreciate it from him, how much fun he's having throughout he's like, I'm even on the block and I'm having the best time. And like, he's stressed. He's like, it's so fun. You can play this game. You can do this. Very motivational, very fun. But also while he's like laying in bed, like staring at the ceiling. So
he's having a conniption. He's having a moment, but he's like, no, it's still so great.
Yeah, it's still so fun. This is where the another fun little mini storyline comes of Bradley pleading to become the viewing party's favorite.
Milkshakes on Bradley.
Milkshakes on Bradley. Yeah, he's like, if he wins the $20 that comes with the win, he'll buy everyone milkshakes. He just wants to win something. That's all. He just wants to win anything. Then we get a psychotic and truly psychotic confessional of Connor trying to strategize this house of cards. He's like an evil, like a mad scientist in his lab. It's like hairs everywhere. He's like, I've got my cards in the perfect order right here, and I'm gonna be able to get this thing under a minute.
You know what I did that nobody's gonna think of?
Yeah.
I put down a towel.
Put down a towel. Yeah. Like, it's so funny. It's so good. Which I don't know if I did this on purpose, but it immediately cuts to Max winning.
Yeah.
It's like, I did
So
all
good.
this. I'm going to win this competition. Max has won the power of veto. All
Yeah.
right, and here's Max. um,
Funny.
so then we get Connor kind of laying out what he, because no one knows who won the veto. It's all still a secret, of course. And so Connor's like, I hope Allie wins and uses it on Connor. That's because he knows that he didn't win. Plan B is it stays the two of them and Max goes home because he's the bigger threat. Option 3 is that he just rallies the votes against Max if rallies the votes regardless of what happens if he's still on the block. Max used the veto on himself. And now we have so Kyle then puts Daniel up in his place. And
He really is just kind of like a run to the end, 6-3, goodbye Connor. Do you remember anything about this pitch or anything about this vote?
no, I think that Sarah was torn about it because she felt a lot she feel I don't even think it was this vote. It may have been when we lose Daniel eventually. She says that she feels beholden to Daniel because they have a relationship. They know who each other. They were friends, whatever. And so she's torn both times that Daniel's on the block. Ultimately, here she goes with Connor. And that's the other thing. She likes Connor. And it's like, we just protected him. Like, why would we do that just to send him out the door? But ultimately, Connor just becomes too much to handle. And Jeff, Allie, and Max vote to protect Connor. And this is probably good for the three of them to know that the three of them protected Connor and they are together. It is them to they know, they can solidify the three of themselves as a block, knowing that everyone else is together in some capacity, probably. Maybe not Greg because his sole mission was to get out Connor, of course. But Jeff, Allie, and Max had Connor's back kind of out of convenience. And so, it probably doesn't kill them either for Connor to go finally, and that's kind of that for episode 3.
Yeah. And we're starting to get to some of the we burned through a lot of the meat of this pre-jury phase, and these next 3 episodes are all a lot shorter. There's still fun stuff to talk about, but while we are let me move my mic closer. While we are before we do that, let's look at a quick little winner check on the Greg Wells of it all. He's been, he's accomplished his mission of getting Connor out. Not really that anything he did crazily or anything that he kind of moved into position to make happen, but that was kind of his first checkpoint was to get Greg out.
Get Connor out.
Sorry, get Connor out. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is he really? Where is he standing right now? What's his deal?
Yeah, so I mean, in the game, you're not going to see this in the episodes as much. He's slowly working on his villain persona, telling people their games are trash, particularly Bobby and Leighton. People no one cares. No, truly, no one cares, even them, that he's talking trash. And so he's doing that, and he's more on the like I said, for narrative's sake, more on the Allie and Jeff and Max and Sarah side, but I wouldn't even say that he's really there,
right.
Because it's an important plot point for him in the second half of the season, which we'll get to, is him really linking up with them. So he's kind of on their side, but he's not even playing the middle. He's more floating than anything at the moment, not really anywhere doing anything. So the winner check is he's there. He's not a serious winner candidate in the real time at this moment, and it only comes up later that he really becomes a winner candidate. And so it'll be interesting when we finally start to see those things where it lands us for Greg's win overall. But that's something that I think we'll get to. So that moves us into episode 4, unless you have a thought on it otherwise.
No, that's that checks out.
Yeah. So it moves into episode 4. We start with Bradley, who's really excited that Connor's gone. Milkshakes for everybody. He's finally did it. Connor's gone, and he feels good. Max wins HOH, which we'll get to in a minute. And then Bradley
marking the 4th round in a row.
Yeah.
So since the first round, all the rounds since round 1, Max has been safe.
And you know what? We may have to at some point go back and see how many total rounds in a row in Max's BBH career. What streak does he go on? Because several rounds. Well, I guess no. Actually, no. he wasn't safe in the final HOH round. So and the end of BBH3. So
Yeah.
that streak ended there. So anyway, was
He
curious if he
picks up
had like a
right
consecutive streak.
Well, he picks up right where he leaves off. Like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
he didn't win that last HOH in 3 or a comp in the first round here, but like he's gonna go on a long stretch of being safe, which is gonna ultimately give him some footing and get him a chance to really dig in here and make some stronger relationships.
Yeah.
So this is good for Max.
Bradley alludes to his alliance with Max. Now, in this part, it's very early on, but right now, Max and Bradley are just generally saying that they're not going to target each other. Like out of 10, it's like a level 4.5 right now. Like they are they have a working relationship, but it's nothing super serious yet. But like I've said, this is important. They're slowly trying to get to this place where they're gonna like have an alliance, but right now they're not. But Max is not coming after Bradley at all.
Right.
So Max with his HOH nominates Daniel and Leighton, two people that have put him up. He's protecting Bradley. He's targeting the other side.
Right.
He doesn't want to make waves. He's protecting Sarah, who he wants to maintain good feelings with. Yeah, it feels like a solid move for someone in Max's shoes. Not doing anything crazy. He can't really afford to like swing for the fences. He already has a target on his back. Like, I guess he could swing for the fences in that regard, but if he wants to have longevity in the game, I think he just has to play it safe. And to protect Bradley and John, I think is important. They have power on that side and they have sway on that side. So like if he wants to not be targeted in the future by the other side, that's a good couple people to protect, people that actually have a chance to win, and Sarah as well included in that. Then you get Jeff winning the power of veto, and Allie is a little bit paranoid about alliances. We hear that a lot. Who do I have? And I think that 6-3 vote, like I said, was telling that I only have these people. But like she's just kind of has to accept that that's her people. Like she does have people. She just doesn't have many of them.
And maybe that's not something she's comfortable with.
Right. It's not. And she's got to be okay with it because, especially in this round, she's safe. Like Max isn't coming after her in any way. So like she shouldn't have to worry about this right now. Jeff doesn't use the veto. No surprise. Another confessional about how Allie really doesn't like Leighton, which we can pocket that thought for a later episode where Allie really goes in on Leighton. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But she's just struggling to find her footing outside of that small group she has.
Right.
Sarah, once again, really debating this decision, struggling internally. Do we take Daniel out here or do we take Leighton out here? She doesn't really know what to do. And ultimately, she goes with trying to protect Daniel. But
it's very full circle because she comments on this in her confessional, but Daniel's the only person who voted to save her back in season
1, right?
And she goes out and like an 8-1 vote or something like that, and Daniel's the only person who threw her a vote, and she wants to repay that, and she wants to try and keep him in the game, and it's just like one of those cool little like full circle things that happens with returning player seasons, and it's a cool moment. Even though Daniel ultimately goes out,
Daniel does go out here. Jeff evicts Daniel. Sarah and Greg evict Leighton. Greg's new mission is now Connor's gone. Let's go after Leighton now. Make sure he gets out. Bradley evicts Daniel. Allie evicts Daniel. Kyle evicts Leighton. John evicts Daniel. Bobby evicts Daniel. This is one of those things where the party lines like don't matter too much, and everyone's just doing what they want.
Yeah,
like because Daniel's not really like. I guess Daniel's like in the middle enough. If they were, I mean, they do get it. Yeah, like. It's just kind of like whatever vote. Like Leighton is more on one side and Daniel's floating in the middle. And
they're not viewed as like serious players in the game. They're just kind of viewed as like secondary, like to what's the power structures that are going on. And so it's like it feels very inconsequential for all of these players.
Yeah.
It's not like Quinn versus Max in round 1 where it's like people are fighting for whatever side to like find that power structure. This is just like whatever.
Yeah, and the vote is 5-3. Allie in a number of ways really could have like made this a tie, and then Max would have been HOH, and he might even take out Leighton at this point. That maybe is even the move there because Leighton is firmly on that side, but Allie is kind of clueless of what's going on outside of her little three.
Right.
So, you know, ultimately not a big deal like to anyone. Daniel, as always, finds himself in this position where he doesn't like he's gonna find himself here again and again where he just doesn't have people to protect him in the way that he wants to be protected.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, but is what it is. Daniel's gone here. Daniel 2.0. Not good.
No, not that great. Didn't win enough vetoes for my taste. But you know,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah, he just from what we see and from what the history has told us, this wasn't a good the best effort for him. But I'm excited to get to see him again.
Yeah, and we will.
Seasons. So
yeah, and we will. So episode 5, Max is feeling good, trying to solidify things with Sarah some more. Once again, that's something Max is always working on while Sarah is keeping him at arm's length. I don't think that ultimately costs Sarah in any substantial way because Max is going to vote for Sarah at the end. Right. But it is something that is going to be discussed throughout. So he's continuing trying to solidify with Sarah. We get a confessional from Sarah, her a little bit of the lay of the land. Max, Allie, Jeff, maybe Greg, and then Kyle, Bradley, John herself, with Sarah kind of, you know, bouncing between, right in the middle of everything.
Fantastically.
No one's targeting Sarah at all, and no one is going to target Sarah at all. I like at all. And it's unfortunate to watch Allie. She just feels lost when she shouldn't. Like I said, I maybe I've said this too many times. She just needs to accept that she has her people and move on. Like she's Leighton.
This is more so speaking. She's not happy that her people are Max and Jeff.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
She's like not accepting the fact that she's like sitting at this lunch table and she wants to go sit at this other lunch table, right? Like that's like she's like, why won't y'all like me? Why don't y'all accept me? Like I don't want to sit with them. I want to go over here, you know. It's so very odd.
You may notice that it sounds a whole lot like this next HOH was won by a game of rock, paper, scissors. And it was. This was a knockout competition, but it was a rock, paper, scissors knockout competition. So it's like a luck-based plus knockout. So we can read into the knockout of it all. The first 2 people that were randomly chosen were Allie and John. John wins. Rock over scissors, if you're curious. And
I am very curious.
Okay, good. John chooses Jeff and Greg, so the other side. Greg wins scissors over paper. Then Greg chooses Bradley and Leighton. And this is in Bradley's head. Like he's like, oh no, Greg's after me. Bradley and Leighton. Bradley wins scissors over paper, chooses Greg and Bobby for some reason. Bradley, weird. Maybe we're running out of people is probably what's going on. Chooses Greg and Bobby. Greg wins rock over scissors, chooses John and Bradley. Bradley's now been chosen twice by Greg. John and Bradley tie. And so in the event of a tie, I said they were both eliminated. This is the rule we had. I don't know if I love that rule now, but it was what it was. So then the wheel chose Kyle and Greg to go head to head. Greg wins scissors over paper. That puts Sarah versus Greg in the final. And Greg wins the HOH rock over scissors. And
were he not allowed to discuss and like lose, like if they wanted to lose?
I don't think so. I think this was like you just have to play and see what happens. Yeah. And so
isn't it so telling that Sarah just waltzes to the final and like nobody, like shouldn't that be the alarm bell? I mean, it's very like Crystal, right? In season 13, just waltzes right to the finale of the knockout.
There's always someone like look at the people that make it to the final without doing anything in a knockout competition. They're always someone to watch out for. And Sarah is that person here. Does not get chosen once, loses, unfortunately, but hey, that's great. If she's in that position, she doesn't need to win. So Greg wins. You hear kind of from Bradley. He says, you don't understand Max. He just wins things only if he wants to. Oh, that's after Max wins the power of veto. Greg nominates Leighton and Bobby. Even though Bradley was worried about himself going up, he ends up not. This is now, like I said, Greg's new mission. Let's get Leighton out. Leighton and Bobby are a little pair. Like, I'm coming after them. And that's part of the public persona that he's making of himself. Like, I'm after Leighton and Bobby. They're trash. And I'm like, I'm I'm their arch nemesis. I'm coming after them. And he does. He puts them both up. Max wins the veto. Bradley says, you don't understand Max. He only wins things when he wants to. But Bradley is like slowly but surely beginning to contemplate making this thing with Max a real thing. We're not there yet still, but it's coming.
It's a great thought process to think through, right? Of like, why am I against this person or not against this person now? But if we're not working together now, eventually we're going to be against each other because we're not working together. So I need to do something to get on side with this person. And you can definitely see the wheels start to turn for Bradley. And this is honestly a great move. I don't know if we give credit to Max or Bradley I mean, it's mutual, right? They have to both.
I'll have the answer to that.
Okay, great. I can't wait to talk about that. Because it is ultimately a mutual type decision. It's a mutual decision to choose to work together halfway through the game. That's not something that you see with people do a lot of times. It's why it's so exciting. It's why it's so exciting when Bees Are Us comes together in season 13. Bitches Are Us, when they come together, because it's like people who are not working together actively making a choice that's going to be for the betterment of their game, right? So this is a very fun story to track as Bradley and Max are drawn together, and it's a great move for both of them.
Yep. Nothing interesting happens here. Kyle and John are the only two to evict Bobby. The rest evict Leighton. Kind of inconsequential because of what's about to happen next. But Leighton's gone in the Bobby Leighton thing because Max doesn't use the veto, obviously. Why would he? In this case, that only causes more issues. And if him and Bradley are slowly working towards working together, why risk Bradley going on the block or even John to that effect? Right. Let Greg do his thing, be his villain self against Bobby and Leighton for some reason, and and move on. So episode 6, last episode to cover for this podcast. Bradley talks about, it's just an interesting thing. Bradley says that John thinks that Bobby is working with the other side, but Bradley's like, that doesn't make any sense because why would they evict one of their own in Leighton? Because if you have Bobby, you have Leighton. It would just make no sense for them to be on the block. So it's just an interesting thing about where John's head is at through Bradley. John is paranoid often, but in a lot of ways, John is playing for Bradley. John wants this for Bradley more than John wants it for himself, which is because John's, just being a good friend in that regard. So he's just looking out for him and trying to think through all these options. Sarah's worried about Quinn coming back in the battle back. Not going to happen. Jeff kind of starts we get from Jeff. He's talking about the sides. Were you about to say something?
Well, I was going to say you're skipping over the return of just a boy named Josh.
Just a boy named I didn't say it, did I?
No, you didn't say it, but it's just a boy named Josh out in nature, Out in nature. All you need is the outdoors and some nature and a boy named Josh.
Boy named Josh.
Talking about host your own version of Big Brother.
Yeah. Yeah. So I announced the battle back that is happening. It was Redemption Island style. But Jeff talks about the sides, kind of has Sarah. Thinks Connor coming back gives him a straight push to the finals.
I saw that. I wrote that down too. I was like, okay. Anyway.
Right, if you say so. It's it's like that time that John said to Max in the BBH3 finale that if he stayed in the game, that it would have probably been the two of them in the final two.
Yeah. No.
Sure.
And my response to all of this is that Jeff was sniffing too much of the Josh Gardner paint.
Yeah.
To just truly go delusional here in a lot of this content. So fun stuff though. Fun stuff.
And so we get the Redemption Isle style things. Leah beat Quinn, so Quinn was out early. Mm-hmm. Connor beat Leah. Daniel beat Connor. No one won 2 in a row here. And then Leighton beats Daniel in the slide puzzle. And Leighton returns to the house. He does not win HOH. However, Max wins HOH. Wasn't Max just HOH? No. Well, Greg was just HOH. So Max is now HOH. And this is finally
another round. Max is safe.
Another round. Max is safe. Yes. We do get a confessional from Allie before I get to this. That Leighton responded to Greg's comment about calling him trash, and all the dudes liked it. And this really has Allie pressed. She's like, they've got to be together. They've got to be together. It's
spiraling hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she
You're right.
wants so desperately to be a part of it. That's the problem for
That's
her.
what it feels like.
It's that she's not invited to like, she wasn't invited to like the message. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just like really making her upset.
Yeah. So Max wins HOH, and now this is where it happens. And I have the moment this happened. So Bradley texts Max and says, "So are we just gonna redo last week, like except John next to Leighton this time?" And then that was at 6:30 p.m. on October 2nd. Then at 6:44 p.m., so about 15 minutes later, Bradley says, "So I have a real question." And Max says, "What's up?" He said, "Can you call me, Bradley?" And then Max says, "Sure, what's your number?" Bradley gives him his number. And then that's at 6:44. Then at 9:14, Max says, "The amount of trust we just put into each other makes me want to throw up, but I love it. This could be the best move of the season, best game move of the season." So they're on the phone for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I, of course, was not in that. I wish I was on that call to know what happened, but they finally solidify it. We're going to play both sides of this house, and we're going to meet in the middle here, and we're going to like knock out someone from each side until we're down to the end. And it's finally happened, and it's so good. Like, and so I really give this to Bradley. He's the one where it's been brewing and brewing and brewing, and finally says, "You know what? Yeah, Max is in power now." Like that, that we talked about this in season 4. Like, sometimes it's transparent when you go to the person in power, but because Bradley does a good job of like being on Max's good side and slowly building this, that he can finally call and say, "You know what? We need to do this," because it works because they're both on both sides and the game has been developed for a few rounds. So it's not like anyone's going to make like big jumps anywhere. Let's be the ones to meet in the middle here and make this happen. And they do just that. And it's great.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give equal credit to Max to be
of course
into it and willing to do it as well. This is going to really define a lot of what goes on in the season. I'm very curious to watch this pair struggle against what Greg and Sarah are ultimately going to kind of do together, because they do a lot as well. So we'll be kind of tracking that in the second half of this. But yeah, this is a turning point for Big Brother Hometowns season 5, and you really have two of the best players in Big Brother Hometowns history coming together for mutually beneficial gain. And
you have to imagine this is music to Max's ears to hear this. Like, if someone else wants to work with me and he's on the other side and he's going to feed me information, and someone I do trust, like, it's so good.
It's great.
So John's on the block with Leighton. That's what Max does, John and Leighton. John is not super concerned, and he wins the veto. Bradley discusses the working with Max of it all. You can tell there's an excitement, but also even some nervousness still. Jeff talks about, I guess
he says he can't, he's leaning towards evicting Leighton because Leighton doesn't talk to him. And when you don't talk to him, he can't do his mafia boss thing.
Yeah, he said, if I can't have any side conversations with him, I can't manipulate him.
Yeah. And I was like, okay.
I guess you're fair. Good point.
It's true in theory.
Yeah, John gives us a fun line. He says, "I'm going to use the veto on myself this time."
Love a full circle moment.
Love a full circle moment. Max names Kyle as a replacement, which is interesting because they're in the Max and Bradley conversation. Max comes to Bradley and says, "John is really pushing me to put Allie up." And he's like, "How do I fight this off?" And Bradley's like, "I'm not sure. You just have to kind of make something up here to put Kyle up." Because obviously, like, Bradley doesn't want Kyle to go on the block here, blah, blah, blah. But like, while knowing, like, he keeps this from John, which is big. Like, but like, Max was never putting Allie up. That's just silly. That's just John wanting to get Allie out. And so we have a 4-3 vote here. Sarah, Greg, and Allie vote to evict Leighton. And then John, Jeff, Bobby, and Bradley vote to evict Kyle.
Which just makes no sense. I don't like Jeff not being on track with his alliance makes no sense for me. I mean, it's ultimately so inconsequential between Leighton or Kyle. It doesn't really matter. It's just weird that he's on the opposite side of his like trio of Max and Allie.
Yeah. This is once again great for Sarah because she can appease like everyone. Like, she appeases her alliance. It's like, I want to protect Kyle. Like, obviously he's in that alliance. I'm going to vote out Leighton, but then like
Then
they
Leighton
get and then Leighton stay. Like Sarah once again in a great spot to do this. Greg can't get his mission of getting Leighton out. Ends up, well, not that he was HOH again, but like he can't get him out again. But he's gonna stay consistent and vote out Leighton here. 4-3. Kyle is gone. The end of his BBH career. Goes out with an advantage in his pocket, and
that's so wild.
And that's our pre-jury.
Honestly, really fun pre-jury.
Yeah, really great pre-jury.
Really fun. You have split votes. You have lots of close votes that could have been dictated one way or the other just based on certain things. We stinks that we lose some fun players in Quinn and Connor, but like ultimately, like
not without like good story to go with it. At least,
yeah, they have good arcs. There's a lot, and losing Kyle not very consequential to the overall narrative. It's good. It's very fun. It's a great start to this season. And I have to imagine, I know you said you focus on hosting back then by yourself, but I have to imagine you're realizing that this is picking up good steam.
Yeah.
And that there's like a lot of excitement about like the downward stretch of this.
For sure. Yeah, and everything is set up really well for these two sides to go to war, for Greg to like finally find his footing and his place as to how he's going to like charge to the win, and he does. Like he's going to earn this at the end, and we're going to see, like I said, the heartbreak of Sarah losing, the heartbreak of Bradley losing, and the mistakes they both make that contribute to that loss. And there's pretty much one thing for each of them that I think they did wrong. And I think if either of them does the other thing, I would even say probably win, which is a lot. So yeah, that's it for chapter 1 here of season 5. We will be back. You go ahead and click on through to the next part of this, to chapter 2 of BBH 5, where we'll see how this whole thing wraps up. For Mitchell Stokes, I'm Justin Salvo, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.